If only I could have helped you. Leaves from the vine, falling so slow, like fragile, tiny shells drifting in the foam. Little soldier boy, come marching home. Brave soldier boy comes marching home.
That little snippet you just heard was a tribute to the late Mako Iwamatsu, the original voice actor of the character Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender. He was the original voice actor to give birth and personality to one of the most beloved characters in cartoon history. When Greg Baldwin came on to continue the role after his passing, we were lucky enough to get a faithful and charming recreation of Mako's original approach to the character. The entire scene of Leaves from the Vine is regarded as one of the saddest moments in the entire show. It's just pure raw emotion that is insanely mesmerizing and still hits me hard to this day. This is because the character it falls under is just so damn likable. Iroh is the uncle of Prince Zuko, and throughout the show, Iroh is always hitting every single character with some wise-ass lesson. This man really makes you go into some deep introspection even if you believe you don't need it. You'll just be watching some battle scene with Aang Katara, and then you'll just cut to Iroh for some deep shit, and oh, it's just so good.
In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself. That is the meaning of inner strength.
You see, Book 2 of Avatar is around the element Earth, but more importantly, it brings out depth to all of the characters we've been introduced to in Season 1. I mean, that's obvious, but just listen to me. I already discussed how Book 1, Water, was all about simple introduction, and now Book 2 is all about these introductions and grounding them. Literally. Like, super literally. Everyone's always getting stuck in the ground in this fucking season. But what I believe the first season did for setting up so many iconic dynamics, world building, plot goals, and cabbage guys,
Oh, my cabbages!
Season 2 does for character development, stakes, depth, and connections, and more cabbage guys.
My cabbages!
The very first scene of Season 2 is Aang's nightmare about one of those chaotic moments of Season 1. The times when Aang would lose control and enter an avatar state through pain, anger, or fear. So, boom, within the first 2 minutes, we get more depth into our character and how he's feeling about his journey so far. Same thing with Zuko, who discusses his time spent banished from the Fire Nation of Fire, so our cat and mouse dynamic characters are getting much more quiet and personal depth throughout the season. The season focuses on their responsibility and pain respectively, each one getting just the right amount of care and focus to hit with some emotion. See, while Aang has to master all 4 elements before the climactic finale in the last season, he first needs to master the avatar state itself. A very overpowered Modern Warfare 2 lag switch that just fucks so hard. So while this season he's trying to master earthbending, which is already an incredible amount of pressure, he's also getting double pressure to learn how to control the avatar state from pretty much everyone. This much responsibility on one kid is really tough, dude. And so he takes cues and lessons from everyone he meets on how to handle it all. Some of the best words of wisdom, of course, come from Iroh, who from the start has been the enemy to Aang because he's always helped Zuko and has been on his side, because they're relatives. Which is just a really cool dynamic that Iroh is able to stay neutral and peaceful and help Aang, and it actually be a very believable character move. And on Zuko's side, you have his pain of struggling to find himself and his purpose, you see his internal struggles and whether to choose right or wrong, and Iroh is always there along the way. We also meet Toph, a blind earthbender who becomes Aang's teacher. She's grown up, overly protected by strict parents, but when you first meet her, you see her pulling some badass moves on a bunch of folk. Oh, and Iroh is there once again to provide wisdom with a cup of tea. This man is just the Beetlejuice of wisdom. He'll just pop out of nowhere if you're feeling some kind of conflict, and he'll just give you hope. The main goal of Book 2 is essentially to reach Ba Sing Se, the last safe haven on Earth that has been untouched by the war of the Fire Nation of Fire. So the first half of the season revolves around their journey to get there. And once they get there, their journey is still not over. It turns out the entire city is full of very deep conspiracies and dark secrets. When the gang first sets off towards Ba Sing Se, we meet Toph. And before we meet Toph, they stop at Omashu, where Aang believes his really old friend Bumi could help him learn earthbending. but it turned out the entire city has been hit with the Fire Nation since we last saw it. The cat and mouse dynamic of Zuko searching for Aang in the last season is replaced with Zuko's sister looking for Aang as well as Zuko. So they're both being hunted like mice, leading for Zuko to turn his heir into a natural yarmulke and his sister to recruit a team to hunt them down. On this team, you got this flexible baddie circus girl who punches you in places that make you numb like she's on some Ultra Instinct shit, as well as emo girl. Just emo girl.
Finally, something to do.
So at Omashu, Aang liberates a town and Bumi tells Aang that he must find someone else to be his teacher because Bumi is too busy being old. Oh shit, also before we got to Omashu, the gang got trapped in a cave with nomads, and Katara and Aang frickin' kissed so hard that the cave lit up. Okay, so back in Omashu, the gang travels onwards where they get pulled into a swamp. And real talk, the entire episode is just straight up Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. I'm not even a Star Wars guy, but you know, just watch. The chosen dude stuck in a swamp, his vehicle is stuck, and he sees visions coupled together with a crazy old green man that gives him words of wisdom. Just let that sink in. But throughout these couple of episodes, the group recollects their thoughts and experiences from their previous journeys and how it sometimes haunts them and how they must move on and keep going forward in order to learn from it. And I love it.
But what did our visions mean?
In the swamp, we see visions of people we've lost, people we loved, folks we think are gone. But the swamp tells us they're not. We're still connected to them. Time is an illusion, and so is death.
We then very quickly meet Toph, a very young girl yearning for adventure and freedom from her strict-ass parents who got you down. So Aang is able to recruit her after she secretly lies about her parents' permission. This leads the parents to set a bounty on Aang, Katara, and Sokka in order to find Toph, so we got even more cat and mice dynamics going on. But next, we move on to one of my favorite episodes in the show. An episode called Zuko Alone that simply focuses on just his story for a moment. It takes a much more personal approach to his character, full of pain and shame, and we get a deeper look into his childhood and what haunts him. We start to notice slight changes in his character and how he's showing more of a caring side, even if he gets hurt in the end.
Not a step closer.
It's yours. You should have it.
No, I hate you.
So going back to our normal gang, we get some good old tense chases and fights, some good old bending lessons, and then we come across the library episode. Sokka hears of a place with incredible knowledge that may help him fight the Fire Nation of Fire. So they journey towards the middle of the desert and come across the Studio Ghibli dickhead of an owl that says they may learn for the sake of learning, but not to gain any upper hand on the Fire Nation whatsoever. So the gang breaks the owl's trust and learns of an eclipse that'll take away the Fire Nation's power, and so the owl comes in all pissed and turns into the mother from Coraline, and just brings the whole place down into the desert. But on the outside, you have Toph waiting with Appa. And I don't think I've talked about Appa enough, so let's get a little tangent going on. Appa is the majestic animal that the group rides on throughout the show. He's this massive, lovable, and adorable bison sloth thing. The show does an incredible way at making this thing so lovable, with just small quirks and moments in his personality. He's connected with Aang and has been for an incredible amount of time. So during the library episode, when the whole place is sinking, Toph tries to keep it from sinking on the outside, but sand people come up and steal Appa in a very heartbreaking scene.
I'm sorry, Appa.
Like, these motherfuckers just straight up tear away this dude, and rewatching this shit, I legit teared up a little like a little kid again. So without Appa, the gang is forced to travel to the desert themselves. They struggle and fight internally, until eventually they come across more sand people. Aang flips the dick out and we get yet another very touching moment of emotion. So as the group makes some distance and is at a port to travel directly to Ba Sing Se, we get another meeting with Sokka and Suki. Suki was a girl that Sokka had a crush on the last season, but he got involved with the Moon Girl, but the Moon Girl became Sushi and a part of the moon itself. So the gang escorts a family across a dangerous path towards Ba Sing Se, since the OG path wouldn't allow travel. There was a very brief moment between Sokka and Suki where they almost kiss at night, but between them is the moon. And it's not spoken or mentioned, but we know why Sokka didn't kiss her. Because the Moon Girl is there, straight up watching Sokka move on, and he probably feels intense guilt. It's really subtle and really smart. So as soon as the gang gets to the safe haven of Ba Sing Se, it turns out they're literally about to get raided as soon as they arrive. This massive ass drill is there and is about to penetrate some walls and mess stuff up. So the gang shuts down the big bad boy and they're welcomed into the city. We get an episode called Tales of Ba Sing Se. See, the gang has to stay in the city for a while in order to actually meet with the king with the information that they learned at the Owl Library. So this allows for an incredible episode where we go through a bunch of short stories around the city, each around different characters. Zuko and Iroh also made it into the city. They're hanging out there as well to hide out from Azula. So in Tale from Ba Sing Se, we get a bunch of anecdotal stories, each with their own amount of fun and small personal moments, but the one that really stands out is Iroh's tale. All throughout his story, we see him going through the town, shopping, and giving very short wisdom or joy to people he sees along the way. When he comes across a boy, he sings a short little song to cheer him up. But at the end of his tale, he sings the same song in remembrance and tribute to his child that he lost many years ago. It's very personal, it's very intimate, and overall beautiful. Very short, quiet moments like this in the show just hit you out of nowhere with insane intensity. Even at the end of the same episode, we follow Momo, Aang's monkey friend, as he gets beaten down throughout the show, until he arrives at what appears to be Appa's footprint and lays down inside the rain. And then it just ends. And even better than that, we then get an entire episode focused around Appa himself while he was kidnapped. The episode has maybe 3 minutes of dialogue total, but the rest is just emotion conveyed through Appa's eyes or his struggles. It's powerful, and for a cartoon on Nickelodeon, it's insanely mature. So the conspiracies of town start getting investigated and unraveled. It turns out that there's a mustache dude using the king as a pawn, and the city doesn't even know about the war, but then Azula infiltrates secretly posing as Suki, and takes over the city from the inside with a bunch of traitor guards who did brainwashing. But during this, Aang learns of a fellow who can teach Aang about the Avatar state who is at the Air Temple, so he goes there to learn. We then get a bunch of scenes where Aang has to reflect on his connections with everyone he's met along the way, and has to choose whether or not to let go of those emotional connections in order to use the power of the Avatar, or never master that state at all. This is all coupled together with great visual design and animation. But Aang sees a vision that Katara is in trouble, so he heads out to her and sacrifices learning. When he reaches Ba Sing Se, Iroh gets involved because Zuko's also in trouble, so Iroh hits Aang with some more wisdom about the choice he just made.
Without the Avatar state, what if I'm not powerful enough?
I don't know the answer. Sometimes life is like this dark tunnel. You can't always see the light at the end of the tunnel, but if you just keep moving, you will come to a better place.
We then reach Zuko and Katara. Azula comes in and fucks it all up, and Zuko betrays his uncle and gets the Avatar almost killed, and boom, motherfucking cliffhanger. Season 2 is mostly about character. Simply, it's just full of non-stop, intimate conversations and moments that flesh out the characters we've already been introduced to. We get to see how everyone is handling the never-ending stress and anticipation of the upcoming battle, and watching everyone deal with it is just a sight to behold. Rather than just having these characters go on a journey of adventure and learning new skills, they journey inwards into what matters most: their damn feelings. Fucking hardcore. Rewatching this, I just couldn't help but get a little emotional at times. The animation, music, writing, and voice acting all come together for this very intense feelings orchestra in your heart. Season 1 was an okay and amazingly fun introduction, but it doesn't hold a candle to the outstanding execution of Season 2. I can't wait to talk about Season 3 and the finale of the series. Everything we've journeyed through so far all come together in one masterclass of a finale. I mean, Iroh does some training in Season 3, and it's just so badass. I just love Iroh. I can go on and on about his wisdom, because it always just seems like he has the right thing to say. Whenever a character is feeling pain or confliction, he's there to help. Next month, I'll be covering some Halloween type shit, so if you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. And now let's watch the names of my Patreon supporters fly by the screen as we watch this dude get hit in the head.